Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCrae.
And I'm human number two, John Lear.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of today's episode is, So You're Dead, Now What? The Significance of Burials and Grieving.
This is a
John,
good one for us because we're closing in on this. I feel like we need this information.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, John, there's a time in everyone's life where they have to confront their own mortality.
Yes.
And for you and me, it's going to be the next 60 minutes. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get this out of the way.
I'm so comfortable with this. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I get closer. I'm sure I'll panic and freak out and go out kicking and screaming. Yeah. But right now I feel like, bring it. I'm all right. I'm good. Really? Yeah. Really? Okay. I think I've made peace. I mean, I know I have a lot more to live, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like I've wrung it out pretty well,
Well, I mean, there's something may happen. I mean, you do still have a lot of life left, hopefully.
Or not. And, I could die right after this podcast.
Please.
That could happen.
Be dramatic.
It would be a good podcast. If I do, make sure my kids upload it, because I handle all the technical side of things. And Mr. McCrae handles, he does really all the work. But I do that side. So you'll have to get Hudson to upload.
Oh God!
Upload this episode.
Before we go any further, text me his phone number so I can get a hold of him. Just in case.
He doesn't answer his phone. You have to Instagram him. You don't even know how to get a hold of my son. You couldn't get a hold of him if you tried.
I'd have to drive out there and wait outside your house. To give you a little background on how this episode came about, I recently, back in August, I was reading an article in the Las Vegas Optic, and that's the newspaper in Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Yes, we got to make that clear. Everybody's going, wait, Las Vegas has a paper called the Optic?
No. I'm talking about the original Las Vegas,
OG.
Not that knockoff over in Nevada. This is the original Las Vegas. And apparently it's an article by Vanessa Maciel, who's a reporter for the Optic, and she was writing about that construction crews at New Mexico Highlands University, which is my alma mater.
Yes.
Go Cowboys.
They're the Cowboys.
Okay. They're the Cowboys, yeah.
I did not know that.
They were digging a trench. A construction crew was digging a trench on campus to put in a new sprinkler system, like a fire suppressant system at
I know
Sininger
where this is
Hall.
headed. I know where this is going.
Sininger Hall, which is the business building.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right on the quad. There's a small quad there. It's a small school.
Yes.
But there's a small quad. Sininger Hall's right there on campus. And as they were digging the trench to put in this new fire suppressant system, human bones started coming out.
I knew it. I knew some legs and arms and skulls were coming up.
Right. So, but this wasn't a murder scene. Come to find out, this wasn't a murder scene. The university is actually built on the location of an old 19th century Hispanic cemetery called the Camposanto de Las Vegas.
Oh my God. So you're all cursed. If you're a cowboy, you're cursed.
Now. I don't know.
Yes, we all learned that in, what was the movie?
Poltergeist. Yeah. You moved the gravestones, but you didn't move the bodies.
You son of a bitch. Now tie a rope around me and throw me into the...
into the abyss. Yeah, into the afterlife.
Oh, God. So great.
And I knew about it from going to school there, because this wasn't the first time this has happened.
Jesus.
There was another time when they were doing work on Sininger Hall.
And as they take a class at Signature Hall. Signature? What is it?
Sininger.
I don't know who Sininger is, but he's not resting in peace. I'll tell you that much. Jesus.
But they back in before I went to school there, same thing. They were doing some work over at Sininger Hall, And as soon as they started digging, all these bones, these were human remains, started coming up.
I mean, but it's not surprising. I mean,
Yeah.
humans have been dying for hundreds of thousands. There's bones everywhere.
Yeah.
And someone, wherever you're standing right now listening to this podcast, someone, probably a few someones, have died right where you're sitting.
Yeah, I was thinking about, we talked about in our rat episode how, like, people say if you're in a city, you're probably within 50 feet of a rat.
Yeah.
So it's probably, I would say you got to throw in like some unmarked cemetery in there too.
Hell because yes.
You're probably so anyway, this was a Hispanic cemetery. It's not a Native American cemetery, so it's not covered by the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990. And what that act said is, basically, it's called NAGPRA, and you'll see it come up anytime that there's Native American remains or cultural items that are being sent back from a museum. Mm-hmm. But NAGPRA basically said that human remains of any ancestry must at all times be treated with dignity and respect. And it also says that Native American remains or artifacts removed from federal lands or tribal lands, again, NAGPRA only applies to federal lands or tribal lands. And by federal lands, they also mean any universities or museums who get federal funding.
Wow.
They belong in the first instance to lineal descendants, Indian tribes, and Native Hawaiian organizations. And again, this is where you'll see often in the news where people are, museums will be sending back or repatriating remains that they had in their collection.
Yeah, you can't have my great-grandfather's head in your museum. It's just not cool.
Yeah, and,
take
believe
a picture, if you need to.
Yeah.
But you can't have the head in a glass case.
Right.
That's
and
not
believe
cool.
it or not, there was a time that people did that, up until recently, but basically beginning in the 1800s. Archaeologists as well would go out and just excavate burial mounds and just dig up the remains and put them in a box and ship them back east.
Yep. Put them in a glass case and there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we should do an episode on museums because there's a whole world of that stuff. And you're the guy to know it. Museums.
So it is on our list. I will have to put together, one for us. Yeah.
Museums we'll talk about it. They're so trippy.
Yeah. There's a lot. They're not just like a big building full of stuff. There's a lot of decisions, a lot of cultural.
And I've been to some weird museums, man. I've been to some weird places that call themselves museums.
Yeah. Basically, it's the definition of what a museum is or what a collection is as well is something interesting. So we'll do that in another episode.
Okay.
But like you mentioned, it's essentially like somebody going down to Mound Valley, Kansas, or down to El Dorado and just like digging up our relatives.
Yeah. And by the way, he didn't mispronounce it. It is El Dorado. It's not El Dorado. They changed it.
Yeah.
El Dorado. Yeah. It's like just going up and digging up old W.C. Lang, my grandfather.
Yeah.
Putting him in a glass case. Saying, here's a Norwegian skull from
from Kansas in the 20th century. You mentioned El Dorado. Yeah, it's funny that just because we're there, we'll have to maybe come back to it about local pronunciations. But in southeastern in Kansas, El Dorado, Nevada, it's just all these names are mispronounced. I don't know if if they tried to mispronounce them or
it's
if
all
it was
over LA. I live on Los Feliz Boulevard.
But anyway, we'll come back to that too. But the remains found at Highlands, again, were not covered by NAGPRA, but there was still a procedure that the university had to go through. And the first thing was that the state medical investigator and law enforcement were called out, because anytime people find human remains, the first thing you got to prove is like, are they historical remains, or was there actually a crime? Was this recent and there was a crime committed?
I'm bummed there was no crime. I wanted a big murder happening on your campus.
after that, they said that the law enforcement said, yeah, it doesn't look like there was a crime committed here. So then the Office of the Archaeological Studies and the State Historical Preservation Office were called out. And what they do is they kind of look and see, like, well, what's the significance of the remains? And then what they do is they recommend some cultural resource management firms, CRM firms, that can come out and excavate the remains and catalog them.
That's what we need. We should invest in a consultancy company.
Yeah.
Come out and
those
dig
are like
up
most
remains.
of your. You have academic archaeology, and then you have like CRM firms who are basically, they're the ones that I think we've talked about before. They're like the hired guns that go out and kind of, if a highway or something discovers some remains, they have, those are the archaeologists that go out and just like, let's just excavate this thing and catalog it. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So, but anyway, all of this got me thinking, like, how often does this happen that these unmarked graves are discovered?
I bet all the time.
Yeah. So
all the time.
I just searched for this year in the United States and Canada. And I was just trying to see, like, well, did this happen some other time? And I had to stop at six different articles about all over the country and Canada about these unmarked graves. But this, again, I just want to say that this doesn't include the discovery of unmarked, or what I'm talking about doesn't include the discovery of unmarked graves at Native American boarding schools.
Okay.
Which, again, United States and Canada, that's an awful situation. And I think to do it justice, we'll have to come back to that and do an episode specifically on Native American residential boarding schools and unmarked graves there. But I found, just to give you an idea of some of the different unmarked graves that have been found this year, in October 2023, a Native American burial ground was found when workers were excavating an underground parking garage in Redwood City, California. In August of this year, up in Saskatchewan, Canada, they found unmarked graves outside the former Beauval Indian Residential School, probably of Native American students. In August, in Alabama, the Birmingham Zoo in Birmingham, Alabama, reported that there were more than 4,700 unmarked graves.
Oh my God! Hey, what are the hyenas digging up over there? Does that look like a femur?
Yeah.
You just see a lion walk by with a femur bone in its mouth.
Yeah.
Jesus, what is that?
And they say it was a potter's field or a graveyard for the poor at one time. And so I think they're trying to expand the zoo a little bit. So this article was talking about how, again, they're going to have to go in and excavate and try to move some of those human remains that are there.
Well, soon this is not going to be, you're not going to have this problem moving forward, because pretty soon we're going to run out of food and have to eat each other. So it's all going to be Soylent Green.
Yeah.
So there'll be no more graveyard.
What do you do with the bones?
You grind them up and put them in. It's like a power drink. It takes 2 scoops of Soylent Green. It's a protein shake.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be doing.
They ate it in wafers on that one, right? It wasn't like,
we'll have wafers. We'll have power drink. It'll look great. It'll taste good too.
You're talking about just having like in one of those big jars that you get at Sprouts or something. Just reach in there and you can add it to your orange juice or to your smoothie.
Yep. Ooh, it's delicious. Filling too.
Yeah. So anyway, like we were just saying, John, it seems like these unmarked graves, they're everywhere. And you're like, how does that happen? How does that? And, Mary and I were up in Las Vegas, New Mexico this weekend, and she actually has some family that's buried there. And she had a great grandfather who lived in Las Vegas and is buried up there. And it's true. You go out there to these old cemeteries, and you've reached the point where you can't read what's on the gravestone. Some the ground is shifted, and the gravestones.
It's the way it's supposed to be, man. We just go right back to the stardust that we were.
Yeah, listen to you.
Just let it go. When I kick, you don't even need to put a tombstone up for me. Just bury me in your backyard. You know that thing I bought you for your garden?
Yeah.
What is that thing? The composter? Just put me in there. Just compost me right into. Just put me out by your wife's Barbie share house. Share house.
You know what I was going to? I was just going to put you in your Prius and drive you out to the airport and leave you in the long-term parking. I'm not even taking the ticket because there's no way I'm going to pay for that with him.
Did you see what's in Lot C? Did you walk by that Prius?
He's been there for years. Look at that car. We don't even drive cars anymore. Don't disturb him. He looks like he's sleeping.
Bezos, you know my billionaire idea of getting all of our trash flown into the sun by billionaires. They should take all of our bodies too. Hey, Bezos.
Yeah.
My aunt kicked. Come pick her up. Put her in your rocket ship.
Be like a giant, like, mosquito zapper or something outside, just going into the sun. You could just watch it.
Just send us right into the sun. I'd like that.
You're before your time. And in this like 20 minutes, you've already given us like Soylent Green powder drinks.
Yup.
You've given us. We're going back to Stardust.
I'm a futurist. I'm very good at analyzing what's coming our way.
So anyway, John, I was already thinking about cemeteries, and then we received an email from a listener, Josh, who asked, and this was Josh's question: why do we as humans have such reverence for burying those who have passed?
Yes,
and that's a great question. I think that's a great question. And just before we begin, I just want to say that in her book, Funerals to Die For, Kathy Benjamin says that humans are not the only animals to have some sort of burial practice, but we are by far the most complex about it.
Yeah.
While elephant... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say elephants. I thought you were going to go right there.
Okay, so she says, while elephants may return to their elephant graveyards to die, it can be argued that humans started becoming human the first time they added items to a grave for no other reason than so the corpse, or at least their spirit, would have those things in the afterlife.
Yeah.
So John, we're going to take a look at burial customs today.
Excellent.
And grieving. So
yeah, I think when you're self-aware, when you're aware of being aware, which is what humans are, then the first thing that comes into play there, or one of the first few things that comes into play is like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. And what's gonna happen? I'm aware that I am, therefore there will be a time when I am not.
Yeah.
And what happens then? And I'm terrified.
Yeah. So do you think about, you've already said like you're okay with it, but do you think about death a lot? Do you fear death?
Sometimes I pray for it. You know, I'm a recovering alcoholic. So I'm like, which is basically, I think, suicide. Somebody who wants to commit suicide, but is too wimpy to do it.
Yeah.
So too afraid to do it. So I don't know. I think everybody does a little bit, but I don't know. It's weird. I'm all right. I'm like, whatever, bring it. Who knows how I'll feel in a few years, but
I would say, because I have depression, and when I wasn't medicated, I feel like there was a time when I thought about death a lot more.
I know. I was there.
Every other word out of my mouth was about that. Mm-hmm. But I thought about more kind of philosophically or kind of like romantically, like Baudelaire, or like the romantic poets or something.
You know what I mean? You were, yes. Those were good times.
Yeah.
A lot of alcohol and a lot of depression.
Yeah. A lot of good conversations.
That's when our friendship sealed.
Yeah. But the thing is, now that I'm medicated, I'm kind of like, what's the rush? I'll get there when I get there. Go on.
I still feel the same like when I get there, but in the time being, let's enjoy.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm with you on that. Yeah, I think we're both much happier than we were when we were in our teens.
Yeah.
For sure.
The conversations 20s. Aren't as interesting, I don't think, or maybe what I think of the conversations. But, do you have plans for what's going to happen to you when you
None
die?
at all.
Really? No funeral
Yeah,
arrangements?
nothing. I got nothing. I don't have a plot. I got nothing. A whole lot of nothing. What about you?
Yeah.
Do you have something?
Well, right now the idea is for me, I want to be cremated because I don't want
Okay.
to. No, nothing left behind. Leave it like the old camping thing. Leave it
Yeah.
better than you
Then you
found it.
found it. You want me to jettison you into the sun? I'll have Bezos do it.
Well, no, but there's Mary's family's buried in this little tiny cemetery up in northeastern New Mexico, and
Oh, that's
and
perfect for you.
I know I love it.
God damn
It's
it. I
just
have to haul my ass all the way up there.
that's the whole thing. Nobody's gonna ever come visit me.
No, but we have to bury you. So I'll have to come
Yeah,
up there. If you die before Mary, which is likely,
but yeah,
I'll have to fucking drive out there.
yeah. Well, the thing
Ugh.
is, it's the plots are really cheap because it's so remote. There's
How
nobody out.
much?
There's only like $35 or something. I don't know.
Really? I'm gonna get
Yeah.
buried up there. Can I be next to you?
Yeah.
I'm, I'm gonna make myself get buried face down on you.
That would be awful.
So I'm just
No,
looking at you for eternity.
Look, he wrote it out. You like forge.
Spread.
Like
I want to be spread eagle, face down, eyes open, so I can look right at you, right
It's
into
our
your soul.
spirits. Our spirits. Be like that George Saunders. Did you read the George Saunders book? Like
No.
Lincoln in the Bardo or whatever. It's all Lincoln right after he dies. And all the spirits are still our two spirits would just be looking at each other. But the thing is, it's so remote, like I say, you could probably just go out there like nobody would ever know. You could just go out there and dig your own hole and just, yeah. I could even do that when I start, if I'm not feeling well, I could go out there and just start digging my hole.
Just lay down in there, bring a pillow.
Throw some brush over it. We actually went to a funeral for one of her relatives that was being buried out there. And again, it's like her relative had passed away in Albuquerque, and you have to notify the people up there, and then they dig the hole, for the casket to be brought up. And the guy, he uses like a frame for like a standard size casket. Well, when her relative got up there, she was in like a casket liner, which made it too wide. So they went to drop it into the hole.
No, and it wouldn't fit. Stuck? Oh,
it wouldn't fit. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
And fortunately, every time we go up there, I take a shovel with me because I fill in prairie dog holes because there's a lot of prairie dogs up there also.
Aww,
and so I was like, as they were there, I was like, hey, I have a shovel. So I got my shovel and the gravedigger. We widened it and got the casket in there. But
Jesus. Another job for your resume. Gravedigger.
People were able to pull it out. So it started to go in and we realized that it was too wide.
Oh my God.
And the gravedigger up there just felt awful because he was like, it's a standard form. I've never seen one this wide. I just did the standard form.
So what did you do? You and he just worked around the radius of the perimeter of the, and just.
Well, I gave I gave him the shovel, but the gravedigger jumped down in the hole and just widened it. You know what I mean? It was just like it's like. Yeah, we're not coming back for this. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But yeah, I would say there's something. It was emotionally satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, but there was something. The grieving process to be involved in the actual digging
I get
process.
That. I guess. Well, with I love when you go to burials where you grab a little piece of some of the dirt and throw it onto the casket. I love that. And I also there's this sub-tribe inside Judaism that are related to Aaron, supposedly Moses's brother, and they're called the Kohim. And usually, if your last name is Katz or Cohen, there's a few of them. But the only way if you're part of the Kohim is if your father tells you. So it gets passed down. And then your parent will say, we're part of the Kohim tribe because his father, his father, his father, his father.
Wow.
And then you find out, and you are now a priest that can be involved in the preparation of the body. And whether you decide to do it or not, you're now, isn't that cool? So it's like this
that
secret.
Is cool.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Like my friend Lauren Katz, she's a Kohim.
Really? Are you a Kohim?
No.
Can you?
I can't say.
You can tell me.
I can't
say.
Tell me. I can't say.
It's like the Masons. Okay.
I'm not, but I'm going to prep your body. That's for damn sure.
Oh, the one more thing about when we were up there and they dug that hole for her relative's funeral.
Yeah.
When they dug into it, it ran into another grave, like an unmarked grave right next to hers. And so you could look into that other grave and see a casket in there.
Oh my God.
That's unmarked graves are everywhere.
Oh, Jesus.
Or you could see, I didn't look too closely, but you could see into the other hole and see like the casket in there.
I think they should start burying us standing up. It'll save more real estate.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense.
Just take, those fence post things to dig out a hole for a fence? You just get a giant one of those, and then you just drop the body down in there.
It would save on room. Definitely save on room, I think. Yeah.
You got to duct tape their arms together.
Yeah, but I thought, they dug in there and they saw that other body. It was kind of like somebody parking right next to you. You know what I mean? Or like somebody camping right next to you. It was.
You don't want to ding the door.
Right. So anyway, in the textbook Evolution and Prehistory, The Human Challenge, archaeologists William de Haviland and others say that it's quite rare to find entirely preserved fossil skeletons dating before the cultural practice of burial began about 100,000 years ago.
Wow.
So we're looking at 100,000 years ago, probably modern humans and Neanderthals started burying people.
Not that long ago.
No, and
the reason why you died.
I know,
a lot.
I know. Where do we put them all?
I don't. We're gonna have to eat them soon. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, why do you not find complete burials or complete fossil skeletons at that? And it was because usually, like, if you were the body's just left out in the open, animals get to it.
Mm-hmm.
And animals will start to take away, the bones. They'll start to eat on the flesh that's left.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time in grad school, our forensic anthropology class used to do a mock crime scene where we would put plastic bones out, and then kind of set it up like a crime scene. Then we would come in and like analyze it, investigate the crime scene. And one time, even with, they had put out some plastic bones up near Cimarron, New Mexico, and even plastic bones. What happened is when we went out there, animals had got to the plastic bones.
What?
And taken the plastic bones.
Like a coyote just walking by going, like a toy almost? It's interesting.
Yeah. Or like, so it's weird. So probably somebody will find a plastic femur somewhere up in there and think that there was a crime scene, and then once they come out and analyze it, be like, it's plastic. It's plastic.
Put it in your pool. It's a flotation device.
Kathy Benjamin, in her book again, Funerals to Die For, says that while there is evidence that some pre-human prodigies may have started adding a flint knife or two to graves as early as 320,000 years ago, it was only about 100,000 years ago that the ritual burial really took off.
Wow.
And then she says, once humans developed language, they could explain their ideas about life and death to others. And I think that's interesting because it was like you needed language to kind of explain the purpose, why we were doing that. Like where they were going or why it was important.
To organize our thoughts, which is such a trip. The idea that what thinking was before language is such a trip to me,
Yeah.
Because we have the same we had the same brain, right? We had the same hardware.
Yeah.
So what were we doing? What was happening inside that noggin of ours back then before you had thought? I mean, before you had language, what was thought? Very cool.
Yeah. And trying to explain a concept like death or the afterlife. I mean, death maybe you could do through limited language, but the afterlife or like spirit, like
what happens?
Try to explain that without language.
Amazing.
So it's
tough.
Yeah. And then she said, by about 12,000 years ago, every culture had their own special way of disposing of the dead. And in the textbook Archaeology and Introduction, Kevin Green and Tom Moore again note that human remains have been regularly treated with respect as early as 25,000 years ago.
Wow.
So we know definitely by 25,000 years ago, probably going back to 100,000, possibly even back to 320,000 years ago, that people were ritually burying their dead.
320,000 years, you're just putting their knife on top of their body, right? And then 100,000, we start burying them, and then wow, crazy, and then it becomes more ritualized. Amazing.
Yeah. And there also appears evidence, like I said, of Neanderthal burial rituals, and an example is in 1960. And this has been a lot of the things that they thought were Neanderthal ritual burials have been disproved. They've been found out to be like natural processes. And so an example is in 1960 at the Shanidar cave site in Kurdistan, Iraq. They found a Neanderthal skeleton with flower pollen near it. And so for a long time, like the people back in the 1960s, the archaeologists were like, well, this flower pollen looks like it could have come from, people laying flowers or Neanderthals laying flowers next to bodies.
Right.
But then it was only recently in 2014 that archaeologists were working at the site and they found more like flower pollen on the surface of the cave floor. And so they were like, wait a second, if this had been left at the same time through a flower, a bouquet being left, then it should have been buried with the body under layers of dirt instead of being on the surface of the dirt like it is now.
Turns out there's just a lot of pollen in the area.
So it could have been, or they think that there were possibly bees, like ground-dwelling bees, had brought pollen back into the cave and were digging their nest in the floor of the cave.
In the floor? What the bees are doing that? So that's crazy.
Yeah. So then they, Fader and Park say that there's a debate about whether these rituals and burial, what they actually meant. And of course, we've talked about it before. It's hard to, like in cognitive archaeology, it's hard to tell what the symbolism actually meant. But they say, did this represent a spiritual belief system or a belief in the afterlife, or were they just disposing of a body? So it's just,
Well, I can imagine back in the day, if somebody you knew from your tribe died and their body is there and it's just getting grosser and animals and, like even ritual aside, you just kind of want to get rid of it so that you don't have to look at your dad, have maggots all over him. I'm sorry, but that, and so you would bury them. I mean, for me, it would be just like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think thank God we did come up with that. I mean, can you imagine if we still just let bodies just kind of like wherever they dropped, you just leave them there and just try to just play around.
I guess they used to do that with horses in the 18th before car, right towards when there were just so many people used horses and a horse would die and it's fucking heavy and it's hard to get. And so they would wait for the horse to decompose a little bit to be able to throw it in God.
Remember we talked about it in the trash episode. In the trash episode, we talk about all the horses that would die in New York City, and they just leave them out there for a while. So
what do you do with them? They're huge and heavy as hell. God.
The good old days. That's the good old days.
Mm-hmm.
There's a site in called the Sungir burial site near Moscow, Russia. Dates to about 25,000 years ago. And it has 5 burials, and all of the bodies are buried with like ivory beads, bracelets made of woolly mammoth ivory. And one of the bodies also had a belt decorated with polar fox teeth, which sounds kind of cool to me.
Jesus.
And so, you think about all the intentional burials or, natural burials, but there's a lot of different burials throughout the world going back many, many years. For example, we have the Toland man, who was preserved for 2,000 years in a Danish peat bog.
What?
Yeah,
peat bog?
Yeah, like peat, vegetation that's been pressed down and damp. And peat is a very good, it keeps out the oxygen and it's cold. And so you can have bodies really well preserved found in peat. And with the Toland man, they think he was probably a sacrificial victim because he has a rope around his neck.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's like,
yeah. Somebody did something wrong.
Yeah. And then in Peru, they found a body of a mummy of an Incan girl. She was about 12 to 15 years old when she died. Again, they think she was probably sacrificed.
Jesus.
In the 1400s, but she was preserved by the cold and dry up in the Andes. It was so cold and dry, it like mummified her body.
Well, that's like they say up when you climb Everest. There are just bodies up there, bodies and empty oxygen cans all over the place, and poo.
Doesn't that sound awful?
Doesn't that sound terrible?
Yeah.
Why would anyone want to go up there just to do it because it was there? No.
Yeah.
No. You don't go someplace just because it was there.
They can date the bodies by the equipment that they're wearing.
Oh my God.
So they'll look at your sneakers or like your climbing shoes and be like, oh, yeah, he must have died up there in the 50s or something.
Oh God. Why would you do it? Why?
Yeah. Kathy Benjamin also notes and this is the famous one, the burial tomb of Qin Shi Huang in China. And he was the first, he lived around 221 BC. He was the first emperor of China. And his tomb is 12,000 square feet and was supposed to have a river of mercury running through it. Like liquid mercury. Yeah.
Well, that's what killed him.
Yeah. Probably killed the whole crew working on it as well.
My friend Scott Freiberg's dad had some liquid mercury in a vial, and we'd go and play with it and roll it around in our hands.
Oh, no.
So when I die, you're going to know why.
I'd be like, hey, he had mercury poisoning.
Yeah. No wonder I'm the way I am.
Yeah, that'd drive you crazy.
Yes, mercury poisoning. Exactly.
Qin Shi Huang also had the terracotta warriors. Have you heard of those? With the 8,000 terracotta soldiers. Yeah.
Incredible.
Each has its own hairstyle and facial expression. Yeah.
Oh, come on. No, there's like 7 or 8 that they just rotate around. Really? Each one?
Mix and match, whatever they're trying to come up with.
Incredible. That's incredible.
Towards the end of the project, it was probably like, just give him a smiley face. You know what I mean? It's
like, I've done the ponytail. I've done the bun. I've got the thing over here, the hair down.
Yeah.
Parted on the left, parted on. I mean, how many? I can't come up with any more hairstyles.
Like how many expressions are there? How many expressions?
He's kind of thinking about something. This one's wistful. He's pensive.
Yeah.
Oh God.
At the last week of construction, it's like a bunch of bald guys with with no look on their face.
Yeah.
They're satisfied. They're content. Just crank them out. Another thing kind of interesting just to throw out while we're there. Incomplete bodies were sometimes buried after the corpse had been exposed to the elements or to animals. So you'd leave that.
You like that? It's like you see them getting eaten up, and you're like, "Oh God, we got to bury Steve. He looks, I can't. Yeah. He's over by the spring there, so I have to walk by him every morning.
Yeah, he's looking right at me.
He's looking right at me. and coming and going because one of his eyeballs rolled out and it's on the other side of the trail.
Yeah. We locked eyes. We locked eyes every time I go down there to get some water. John, I have to ask, since we're here too, is there anything you want me to toss in the burial, toss in your burial with you?
Let's see. Well, definitely my podcast microphone. I'd like to take that with me.
If you can, keep recording. Keep recording.
The last 7 years of my taxes, because I've got to hang on to those just in case.
Don't shred them. I'll be like, don't shred them. Don't shred them. He wants them in there with him.
Seasons 2 and 3 of 10 items or less.
That'd be a good intro into the afterlife. Take a headshot. You should take a headshot with you.
I have a Darth Maul in the original packaging that I'd like to...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll throw that one in there. Don't worry. Send it out to me now so I have it.
Son of a bitch. Oh, re-up all of my prescriptions and throw them in just in case I need them in the afterlife.
In case you're not dead yet.
Yeah.
In case you're not dead. I'm not dead yet. Okay, you want a flashlight or anything?
Yeah, maybe a flashlight.
Yeah.
Get my phone. Give me my phone. And charge the battery before you put it in, please.
That's what I was thinking for mine. Just throw in a bag of chips and a cup of coffee and maybe a magazine. I'm going to treat it like a flight, like I'm going on a flight.
Okay, done.
At my brother David's funeral, his wife on his gravestone had a marijuana leaf and the KC Chiefs Arrowhead logo inscribed on it.
That's fantastic. That is David.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, David. It was like his favorite things, like the favorite thing he would do on Sundays. So why not put it out there for, eternity? I think it was great.
Better than getting stoned and watching a football game.
I know. It's just so soothing. So soothing. The introduction to the book, The Archaeology of American Cities and Gravemarkers by Sherene, Baugher, and Richard Veit. Michael Nassany says that monuments that commemorate death serve as physical reminders of those who came before us and the transitory nature of earthly life.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's for the living, obviously. The burial is for the living. Which is like why, when, someone passes, you gotta go. You don't think you want to go to the funeral,
right?
But you do. You gotta go, because that's I don't know. There's a reason. There's a reason we've been doing funerals for 3,000 years or more, as per what you're saying.
Yeah. But, and he says, all societies from time immemorial have employed mortuary ritual to mend the torn social fabric caused by death.
Yeah.
And I think that's true because there's a hole in your life. There's a hole in maybe your community when someone dies. And it's that ritual, that mortuary ritual or that remembrance that gives us all, it creates a space where we can all go there and grieve together and try to put our lives back together. It's like a little pause, a little gap between our lives.
I like that.
Yeah. And he also says that, the ways in which people recognize the dead and aim to soothe the grief of the living are learned behaviors that reflect in microcosm a society's values and beliefs. And so we pass down our funeral beliefs or our funeral customs.
Yeah.
And I don't, I mean, like did the Lears have certain things that you would do when someone died or?
Not really. Drink heavily. We would all drink heavily. Yeah. Irish, I guess. That's the Irish sort of wake, I guess. That's about it. Just drink really, really heavily at a bar afterwards. And that's what we did when my dad passed. We had his favorite bar. We all went there after, and it was great. Everybody was there, and one of my cousins got so wasted that he and his sister got in this enormous fight.
Yeah,
And I don't know. It was the whole thing. There was something so great about the whole thing. I don't know. You know what the weird thing was about my dad's funeral is my Uncle David, who's my favorite uncle, just amazing guy. He calls me and he says, "Hey, when you're going through your dad's stuff, bring me his guns." He had 2 rifles. My dad had a shotgun, a 22 rifle, and a handgun. It must have been a 22. And he's like, "When you find him, bring him to me." And I'm like, well, don't we have to, isn't there some process? Like you re-register it to him? He's like, "No, just bring him to me." And I'm like,
out
okay.
The parking lot.
So in the parking lot. That's exactly what happened. In the parking lot of the cathedral, after we did the funeral, or the wake, I mean the what do you call it? The memorial. He pulls up to my car, and I take him out, take my dad's guns out of my trunk and put him in my Uncle David's. He drove off.
It's like the Godfather. It's like, leave the cannolis.
Like,
take the gun, leave the cannoli.
It was so funny.
I remember at my dad's funeral, my dad had left a note that he wanted a certain guy to sing at his funeral, that he really loved this guy's voice.
Wow.
And so we went forever to track this guy down. It was really hard. You had to like ask around and ask people who knew somebody and knew my dad. And we finally found him, and the guy was like, yeah, I'll come sing. And I remember at my dad's funeral, like my siblings and I, we were all crying. And then this guy starts singing, and he's awful. He's awful. we start dying laughing. I mean, I don't know if my dad meant it as like the final practical joke, or like maybe he was half crocked when he heard this guy.
Yeah, I mean, there was probably they were drinking buddies, and he sounded like an angel.
Yeah. But it was so great to go from like crying at the funeral to
laughing,
giggling and laughing.
I love it when somebody gives a eulogy that has both of those emotions. It's such a great feeling.
Yeah. So another thing that Archaeology of American Cities and Gravemarkers notes is that Americans establish burial grounds and cemeteries with an eye toward permanency, unlike their European forebears who removed human remains from their places of rest to make room for new ones. So do you know that, like, if you get buried in Europe, you're only there for a few decades or something until
they move you? And where do they put you?
An ossuary, which is just where all the bones are stored.
So that's sort of what they did with the church, right? They used to just throw everybody's bones down in the catacombs, and like at first, if you were a noble, you'd have your own little corner cabinet. But if you were a lesser, you would just be thrown in a big. Because when I was in Vienna, we went to the big church. I told you this, and walked through the catacombs, and they're just these giant rooms packed with bones. It's so crazy.
And it's, what I find interesting is this idea that if you go to an American cemetery, the idea is that you're there for it. It's almost like property. You buy it like a piece of property. Like you can purchase it. You have a deed to your plot. And you'll be there forever. But as we know now, like,
that's not true.
Digging you up in about 100 years.
There's no forever.
Yeah.
At some point, they're going to build a shopping mall on top of it or something.
They're going to, that underground parking garage. And I got news for you. You're out of there.
Sorry.
The other thing, in the early days, the colonial days, American settlers, or like English settlers, would often bury their dead on top of or within Indian burial mounds. And again, it was like this kind of taking possession of the land. Of like, okay, now we're taking, we're burying our dead there.
That is the fuck you of fuck yous, isn't it? It's just like, Jesus.
Yeah, it is. And they say that there's a double standard in the treatment and care of the dead. For example, usually white graves, American white graves, are seldom exhumed even for study without a lot of permission being,
you can't just dig
beforehand.
somebody up.
Yeah.
Unless you're brown.
But
and then you can.
Right. And then in like indigenous graves or African American graves, people just felt like, we could just go study those or do whatever we want with them. And the other thing that Baugher and Veit say, which I think is interesting, is grave markers are the above ground component of American cemeteries and burial places are the ultimate historical fact. They are part material culture and part document. And what's cool is that, they actually, you have everything there. Like you look on the grave, you have the name of the person, when they lived, whether they served in the military. It's like,
and soon when we all have chips in our heads, they'll like glue the chip on the gravestone so you can just scan it and be like, this their whole life. You've got their credit score, you've got their Facebook page, you've got everything.
Yeah, actually, if you can talk about my credit score because I'm very proud of my credit score.
It's fantastic. The fact that you were able to walk out of the basement you were in, to be able to afford to be able to qualify for a house is I can't believe to this day.
Yeah,
to this day, I can't believe it.
Please bring that up in my grade point average. And my eulogy, please.
It is interesting. I joked around about Facebook page, but you do have Facebook pages of dead people. Like a friend of mine who was tragically murdered. They still have his Facebook page, and every year, like people will post on it. It's so interesting.
Really? Do they ever do the messages from him? Do you get messages?
No,
because sometimes we'll get some from my mom. Like Donna commented on. Maybe like
10 years ago. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, but I do come across every now and then, and my mom's email will pop up, as or her contacts will pop up, and I'll just be like, "Oh, wow, she's dead." Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I had one of my mom's boyfriends call me to verify that he was probably half out of his mind, to verify that she was actually dead because he had seen that on Facebook and thought she was posting again.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Jesus.
One other thing that is interesting and I don't know, kind of frustrating or sad is that we find that in our cemeteries in this country, the segregation that we had during life is often continued in the cemetery.
Hell yeah. We're not coming together.
Yeah.
Nope. We lived our lives separate and, crushing each other, and we're going to go out that way too.
Yeah. So you have like the Catholic cemetery, the Protestant cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, the African American cemetery. Yeah. It's like even at death, we can't get over it.
It's so crazy. I get it. Like we've been programmed to see our tribe. And I'm sure that served us back in the day, that you needed to be able to recognize but now anything that's different at all, we're just wired to find the differences, to find.
Yeah.
It's killing us.
Yeah. Yeah. We found that up in the Las Vegas cemetery too. It was like, and there's fences between them. Like we don't want anybody coming over.
Don't come over here.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna bury a Jew on top of you. I'll tell you that much. Spread eagle. I want my yarmulke too. I'm gonna hold a Hanukkah in one hand.
Put a sleeping bag in there. Come on in, brother. That's all. We're all equal.
It. I want to. I think I've mentioned this before. I want you to dress up my body as Darth Vader and burn me on a funeral pyre like they did in the when he died. But I want the whole thing. I want the mask, everything.
I thought it's just toxic. Just a toxic black smoke rising from your funeral pyre.
You could put me on a wooden raft and float me out into the lake and shoot me with a flaming arrow. Just douse my whole pyre with gasoline. That'd be cool.
I did find that they say that historically Vikings never really did that.
Yeah.
Like you would be buried looking. Yeah.
I mean, shit, that's a lot of work.
Somebody swim out there and bring it back. Bring it back. It's too far. We can't reach it.
We can't
the current
reach it.
got it. The current got it.
It didn't catch. It didn't catch. The arrow blew out.
Yeah.
Go get Leif. Get out there. Bring it back.
Pull it back in. Okay, that's close enough. Now we can
shit,
try.
It's sinking. Shoot the arrow. Shoot the arrow. Shoot the arrow.
Oh, it's how he would have wanted it. It's how he would have wanted it, really.
And then in the end, you're just like, oh, yeah, Leif, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Yeah, but when I was alive, we tried to do it to the other guy, and you guys didn't do it. For me, I want you to really, we're going to do it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. I think you need to, just to be sure, you need to start the fire before you push it away from the dock.
For sure.
Just get it going. Yeah.
And then as long as you're doing that, just burn them on the shore.
Yeah. So in his book, The Hour of Our Death, Philippe Aries quotes Jeffrey Baugher, who said in the 1960s that death has been removed to a distance. Not only are people no longer present at the deathbed, but burial has ceased to be a familiar sight. Children have been excluded from death.
Yeah, that's true. That was the cool thing about my dad. He said that he wanted to die alone. And that the first person who saw the person who found his body would not be family.
Yeah.
And that exact thing happened for him. He died in his apartment, and a janitor smelled, the body.
Yeah.
It was really but you know what was really cool? And my cousin Gar, who's a listener. Hello, Gar.
Hello, Gar. Thank you, Gar.
And he is a man of the cloth. And he went and accompanied my dad's body through the when he was burned, through the whole process.
Yeah, really.
Really.
Yeah.
I'll never. Amazing. What an amazing thing to do.
Yeah. And that's what Baugher says also, that there's 3 categories of bereaved people: those who succeed in completely mastering their grief, those who hide it from others and keep it to themselves, and those who allow it to appear openly.
Yeah. I'm the hiding. I hide it. I just
do you?
Swallow it and turn it into cancer. Yeah. That's what I do. I don't know.
And interestingly, speaking of people of the cloth, there's a Norwegian minister named Lars Johan Danbolt who wrote a book called A Time to Mourn, or an article called A Time to Mourn. Mm-hmm. And he says that those who choose to let the burial rite be a time to mourn, in his research, had less anxiety, depression, and loss-related experiences during the first year of bereavement. So it was like...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lars, the Jews have got that down. You say a prayer every week in synagogue in front of the entire group. You stand up, you light the yahrzeit candle for a year, and then after that, once a year, you say it and you're done. And it's just this incredible process. You sit Shiva for 7 days. Then you light a candle and say a prayer once a week, light the candle every Shabbat. And then after that, it's just on the anniversary. And that's it.
But
you've done it.
You take advantage of it. You're actually actively grieving. Grieving.
There's a process. There's a structure. There's here's what you do,
Yeah. Also interesting. Remember Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who had written like the stages of death, and like somebody who finds out their tomb. Well, right before she died in the early 2000s, she wrote a book with another guy called David Kessler, and it was called On Grief and Grieving: Finding the Meaning of Grief Through the 5 Stages of Loss. And so she had applied that same for the person who is dying, the 5 stages. Which is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. She and David Kessler applied those to grieving, and they said that you have those 5 stages even as the survivor who's grieving someone who has died. So you have like denial is like you can't believe the person's gone. Second stage, anger. You're angry at the loved one for not having survived, your anger for not taking care of themselves. And they say, the anger doesn't have to be logical or valid, which I think is true. I think people have to grieve in their own way. Bargaining, becomes like you'll do anything if they could have survived. And then you have depression in the fourth stage.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they say that, depression's like it's like a expected reaction to a great loss. But what happens is a lot of people try to think that they need to do something to help you snap out of your depression.
Right.
And
right.
sometimes that's not
process
what you
need. Get past it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That idea. Yeah.
And then finally it's acceptance.
You got to hold depression like a cold lover. You just got to make out with depression. Stick your tongue right down their throat. It's my advice.
All right, doctor. All right, doctor.
A clinically depressed person, you got to hold their hand and run naked. Yeah. Go skinny dipping with depression.
I'm going to take my depression on a vacation to Las Vegas. The knockoff Las Vegas in Nevada. That'll make me feel better. That'll make me snap out of it.
I'm going to Santa Monica Pier to ride the ride the zipper ride with my depression.
We get my depression and I have a timeshare in Cancun that we go to every year for a week. And then acceptance is like you realize that this is the reality, that it's the new norm that we must learn to live with, is that our loved one is gone. So, So John, again, you say you haven't thought about having what you're going to do at your funeral. So I thought I'd just give a few examples from around the world and throughout history.
Oh, thank you.
Just give you some ideas. Yeah. Okay. So again, this is coming from this is coming from Kathy Benjamin's book.
This podcast will serve. This podcast will serve as my official instructions to my family after I'm gone.
Okay. I hope it's not like glitching or something. Be sure that
whatever I decide now, don't undo it. Right now, you dress me as Darth Vader. We know that, and you light me on fire. But here we go. Let's see what else.
Okay. So her book is really good. It's really funny and it's really well researched. But she just kind of lays it out in like little segments about like different funeral customs. So just part of the history in Paris in the Middle Ages, you've already talked about the catacombs, but there were so many people dead in Paris that between 1786 and 1788, they had to dig up all the bodies and put them in catacombs because they had to make room for all the new dead people coming through.
Yeah.
And in Palermo in Sicily in the 1500s, the Capuchin monastery, they would like somehow dry out the bodies of the monks and then put them in like nice clothes and then set them up to where people could come in and look at the monks as if they were still alive. And then rich people rich people wanted to do that as well. So we could do that for you. Put you in a nice suit.
Okay. Dress me up. Hell yeah. You can do whatever you want with my body. Dress me up, whatever, drive me around, whatever you want to do.
We'll put you a little move his arm, make it look
dress me up. You can make me whatever crazy shit you want to do. But in the end, don't forget, dress me up like Darth Vader and burn me.
Okay. We'll see. If we're having a lot of fun, it might be a while.
At some point, you're going to want to get rid of me. Trust me.
There's post-mortem in the Victorian ages in the 1840s. There was post-mortem photography. And that's where you take photographs of the bodies. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like at dinner parties and stuff, right? They would like set them up. Like, that's so weird. Why?
They prop them up in poses and make it look like they were sleeping sometimes.
Why? I don't understand. I can't like get a handle on that. So weird. Maybe because you could. It was like the technology, because it's the technology that somehow keeps them around forever. And you had to hold still for photos. back
Yeah,
then.
and
So
they did that really well.
They
really
did.
well.
They did that part. Jesus.
You could always tell the dead person because they're the one that's not blurry. In the photograph,
Well, they're going to feed,
everybody else.
I mean, they're going to feed all the video and all of the information of all of us into an AI that will represent us moving forward, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like in Superman, remember he could talk to his dead
Oh,
dad because they had all of the, because of the technology. They're going to be able to do that for us. Like, that's not that far away, really. I could probably upload this podcast and all of the video I have of you and all the stuff you've written and all of your emails. I bet I'd get a pretty good version of you in AI that I could have forever. I get you taxidermied.
It's like, just let him go. Okay? Let me go. Let me go, please.
I get you taxidermied. I put a speaker in your mouth, so that you could talk to me. And then I'd have like a remember on the $6 Million Man where there was a little knob in the back of his head so you could move his eye. I could do that, so I could move your eyes.
It's like, what are you looking at today, John?
But you know what? I would do it so well, you'd be like, please let me go. Please let me. That's all you'd be saying. Why are you doing this? You'd take all the fun out of it.
How about songs? You ever think about the songs you want played at your funeral?
Yes. Freebird. Yeah. For sure.
Okay.
I don't know. No, I haven't. Just the entire Led Zeppelin 2. Just Led Zeppelin 2 would be great. That tells my story. Out. Yeah. The full album. Everybody sit there for the full album.
How about we wheel out like a monitor and play "Song Remains the Same"?
Oh,
the whole movie. The whole movie. People would be like,
"Well, you and I have seen that movie many, many times together at midnight." How many times do you think we've seen that movie?
I don't know. It's like I know all the dialogue.
When they go in the fantasy scenes and they're out and
we'll just play it. Everybody.
What about Spinal Tap? Maybe you could roll Spinal Tap.
Really? You think that?
Bring out a monitor and roll Spinal Tap. That'd be
good. My brother David, again at his funeral with the pot leaf and the he wanted "If You Don't Know Me by Now" by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes played.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
You'll never know me. If you don't know me by now, you'll never know me.
So funny.
Yeah.
God,
it was very funny. And then finally, John, in the 1700s in New England, there was a custom that if someone died, their family would give away pairs of gloves to all the people that came to the funeral. They get a nice new pair of gloves.
What? Okay, I want you to do that for me. That sounds like a good idea. Give everybody gloves, would you?
Yeah, and even like people who wrote about it at the time didn't really understand why they were giving away gloves.
Somebody just did it, and then everybody's like, that's what you do. That's the thing about ritual. It doesn't really matter. You attach meaning to it.
Right.
And that's how you make it personal. So it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
So we'll do like a little tote bag for you with some sample shampoos and stuff that people can take home with them.
I just want everybody to make out with the person to their right at my funeral. Will you make that happen?
I'll try to.
Whoever's on your right, you have to make out with.
He wanted it. So last wish. So finally, just wrapping up, Philippe Aries also says that death is not a purely individual act any more than life is. Like every great milestone in life, death is celebrated by a ceremony that is always more or less solemn and whose purpose is to express the individual's solidarity with his family and community.
Yeah. So it's about everybody else. It's like a wedding. There are two types of weddings. You go to a wedding where it's all about the bride and it sucks. Yeah. Those weddings always suck. We're doing it
it's
for
our
me.
Special day.
It's our special day. You know, that's why you all had to fly out to fucking Venice, Italy. It's for you. We're creating a vacation for you.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's the other kind of wedding, which is about the bride and groom putting on a party for their guests. And those are the best weddings.
Yeah. I always thought it was a wedding's like putting on a show. You know what I mean? It's all about the audience. It's all
you
about
put
the
on
audience.
some good weddings, both weddings. I've been to both.
Yeah.
They were both
Hopefully
great.
I'm not putting on any more, but
no,
that was
you're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
But they were great. They were great.
Yeah, it's about the people. It's about the people who have come. And I think a funeral has to be that way too.
Yes,
it has to. You know. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, so
here's what I want you to do. I figured it out. After all this, I figured out what I want you to do.
Okay.
It's a little gruesome, but it's what I want you to do.
Okay.
I want you to cut out all my innards and everything and just have my skin, and I want you to wear it. Do of comedy route.
Okay. I'll do. I need a suggestion of a place.
Will you do that?
People are just shocked.
Just with my skin on you.
They're just shocked when I walk out. He's still alive. No, wait.
Wait, is that McRae underneath it?
I need a suggestion of a place, and
everything's kind of floppy and ill-fit.
Yeah. You know, there was also something I came across, which was a living funeral, which is like you do a funeral while you're still alive, and then people get to come in and tell you all this, how great you were while you were alive.
Yes, that's like the wedding that they put. Yeah. That's the selfish wedding. Oh, yeah. Fuck. We all got to come out here and tell you how great you are, you son of a bitch.
And you're still there. Like, you're looking at them like, And then what did I do then?
And what else? That's it? Or you show some disappointment. Like, okay. That's all you could come up with? Remind me to rewrite my will.
Yeah, they said the problem with that is that people will come out. You're supposed to do it right when it's imminent that they're going to pass away, but sometimes people rebound. So after you've had the living funeral, they're still there. And
that's wrong. I'm just gonna judge that. That's wrong. You gotta die to get a funeral. Is that so crazy?
Yeah.
The one thing you gotta do. You gotta be dead.
Yeah, that's where I draw the line. Living people don't get funeral. That's it.
Yeah, that is a rule. And guess what? Dead people don't get to be born. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
It all works out.
Wow.
All right, John.
This is a good one.
Well, I think we've
thank you for this.
Really thought about our mortality. So
yeah. Well done. Well done. This is human number 2 signing off.
And this is human number 1. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks to our listener, Josh, for sending in that great topic suggestion. I hope we've answered some of your questions.
And Josh, for your question, when I die and you're done with my skin suit, after you've done my skin suit performance, FedEx it to Josh. That's our thank you gift.
That'd look great. Anybody would want that.
Whatever you want to do with it, just put me on a hanger and hang me up in the closet.
I'm just gonna keep you in a box out in the garage with the Christmas decorations. Like, where is that? I need to put it out. So, I gotta go get it dry cleaned.
Oh no! I went out. Guess what happened to the skin? The mice got it. Bugs got into the skin too.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
I was wearing it at a party and spilled some wine on it. Gotta take it in. You can only hand wash that thing.
You could stuff me full of hay and put me in the passenger seat so you could do the diamond lane without getting arrested. Ooh.
Now you're starting to make some sense. Yeah, I like that. All right.
Well, if you've enjoyed, as a human,
yeah. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please tell a friend about it. And don't forget to check out our Facebook and Instagram for more information about the episodes. John, thank you. Please don't rush into it. We need you, baby. Need you, baby.
It's coming. I'm not going to lie to you, but not for a while. Not for a while.
We'll make sure it's during a podcast.
Face down, spread eagle, and face down on you at some point, though.
Oh, God. Oh, that just brings up so many questions about the afterlife.
Just looking right at you.
Existential, like we actually stay there looking at each other. All right, everybody. John, I love you.
Love
everybody
you too.
out there, love you guys. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.